I make the terrible joke that YouTube tells me I'm live because I was starting to question it. All right, boys and girls, safety glasses, getting things around, and you might have checked out a couple of our videos yesterday when Cheyenne was working on handle material, which she's still got a couple pieces left to finish out. Let me go ahead and move these. I've got a little bit of time before the shop opens, so I figured it's a good time to do a live video. It's definitely plenty warm in here, guys. Okay, so yesterday, what I was working on, Cheyenne was doing handle material and I was doing handles. Did a video on how to take scrap, essentially scraps that you have in your shop and make knives out of them, and making knives and making money. So that's what I did. I used primarily cut-offs for the handles, and then remainders of high carbon steel. This one was saw blade. Majority of these are saw blade. While I was at it, I went ahead and handled up some of the Damascus blanks that were laying around. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to, but how you can also go through and do a batch cleanup on your knives. So I've got 7 saw blade knives here. Now, the reason I'm using saw blade is because we had some laying around. We needed to use it up, so we plasma cut some blades out, and that's where we're at. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's a great time to go ahead and do that. So I have a worn and terribly loaded 36 grit zirconium belt right here, and I'm going to continue loading it until it will load no more, if that works for you. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the process on how to clean one of these down, and it starts out with profile. Clean that profile, get it down to the tank, get it to throw a spark or two, and then it comes into knocking off the hard edges. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and take my bend down again. Have it. Now break hard edges. Have it. Of course, that's just in this particular step with this particular belt. So now let's take this file steel blade with a Purple Heart set of Purple Heart handle scales, and essentially going to do the same thing. First step of the process is the profile. So we want to take the handle material down to the scale tank. See the tang there? Put a looks like before. You got a gap, there's some epoxy. There it is, tang visible all around. Everything's looking good, and now we break hard edges again. How's it going? Wow, Candy Dude 8. How's it going from the US? Breaking hard edges. How those are coming together. Still finishing to be done, but this is going to work for these little, essentially saw blade steel kitchen knives. Now here's a little larger one. This has a Caduce handle, and it's working the same way. If you get too much load up on your belt, a belt dresser usually does the job. Cleaned up all around. A little bit smaller. Regardless of the size of the knife, the process is the same. Okay, on edge 72, the orange is Caduce, the purple is Purple Heart, the red's Bloodwood, and that is East Indian Rosewood. These are not stabilized, so this is a dry natural wood material, and it's going to get polished up a little bit. It's just kind of a satin, make the grain pop more, and then it's going to get an oil finish. This one's got some minimal gap in here. That will be just fine. So it's the same process over and over again. Profile, flatten, profile, and then break the hard edge. What that comes down to is you can go ahead, you can finish this out, you can round it out, you can sand it down. But what I have here, I have a handle that does work. Because the hard edge of the stroke is not as blocky, it allows me to get a reasonable grip. Do another one like that. That. Alright, another one of the bulkier ones. I mean, they're light, but this is more, a little more bulky. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my profile real quick. Profile of the blade along with the handle. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's a good time to do that. I'm going to say that through all my videos, guys. We just hit 1,000 subscribers, and we're looking for 1,000 more at least. we go. Handles up, not bad. Okay. Now in this batch, I've got this one, East Indian rosewood, one of my favorite materials to use. And it's probably going to be a little bit slower because it is denser. Once more, breaking hard edges. There you go. All right. I've got 3 more Damascus. I've got, turn this off. I've got 3 more blades coming up here. I've got, they're Damascus blanks that I ended up heat treating here. And, they're right here. Now, those 2 are in some of Cheyenne's handle material, and that is in Bacote. That one almost looks like it's got a split in the handle. Everything's epoxy together. It should be good. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and start working through these and get them rough ground. That way I can go through and have, hopefully have all of my knives that need to be finished out on handles done, at least for the time being. It is a never-ending cycle here. This is what I do. Like I said, my shop's not technically open right now, business hours. It's before my business hours, and I'm down here doing this. So, Because I gotta say that's turning out kind of nice right there. And the Cody, that's really gonna pop once I add some oil. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one up. And next we're gonna do some dyed and stabilized curly maple. Liking that. A little piece. But now the blue dyed and stabilized curly maple. No dust mask. I know a lot of people are going to be like, hey, you need to be wearing a mask. These glasses fog up. I get cut up. It eats me on the grinder. So unfortunately, no dust mask. Also, this doesn't make for a very good seal. So making progress on the pieces. Next, I'm going to go to a worn split 120, and then I'll go to a surface conditioner after that, followed up with probably my oil coating. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's a great time to do so. A lot of people are concerned about respiration, respiratory issues and so forth, and I understand that. And long-term exposure can be a problem as well as short-term. I'm aware of that. I've also been doing this for 30 plus years. It's working for me. I'll put it that way. There are times I'll wear a mask. Most cases I can't. There's some medical issues involved, but stuff that it's not worthwhile going into detail on. Maros, yes, that is it's a pattern welded blade. There's three of them. This is Damascus that I did not make, but I did grind it and heat treat it, so I figured I'd use it up. All right, so now a worn one. Oh, I guess I should turn this. A worn 120 split down to about an inch. This is a Jay Nielsen technique I learned. Now the Fadook does produce quite a bit of dust. This one I'm going to try to do underslack grinding. Now this is a relatively light wood. It can make a really pretty knife handle. It can be prone to cracking, and that's one reason I epoxy these down as well. It's because it kind of holds everything in place if that were to happen in the future. That makes for a nice little smooth handle right there. All right, pretty happy with that. Well, we used to spend a lot of time in the shop hand sanding, trying to get things down. Then we found out that there were easier routes. Now I generally don't top slack. This could throw it towards me. I should be wearing some form of chest protection or something. But notice that when I top slack just for the handle. I also know that the blade isn't safe. The blade is also not sharpened. There's no edge. Finishes out quite nicely. cleaning up quite nice. J Sharp 1776, how's it going, man? Alright, so I've already roughed ground, put in my bevels, it works. Seen a lot of kitchen knives made this way, but I'm going to go ahead and come in here and start working down the handle. This rotation just starts to bring everything together. Got my fingernail there. Go. So now I'm going to go to Purple Heart. This one is a little denser than the Purdue. Okay, so bone shaker. Let's see. This is sanding. So I'm cleaning up the handles, and this is post heat treat. The blades have been heat treated. I've just got to get everything cleaned up. I'm doing assembly. I'm gonna do this little piece right here. It's in bloodwood. Clean that up a little bit. Bloodwood, I'm going to say, is probably denser than Purple Heart. Kind of working my way up on density. Taking my time around this off. Now this 120 right here is not a 120 anymore. This is quite warm. Still have parts of my fingerprint. And This could be the last time I use this particular belt. It's hard to say. And all it's really doing is just polishing the handle more than anything. Guys, before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and check this belt out. Because this thing is still rough enough to use, but there's not a whole lot of grit left on it. I got the other half of that belt right here, and we're going to retire this one, which means I'm going to go throw it away. And before I throw the other one away, I'm going to put this one on, because I'm standing here, and that's what I'm going to do. Let's see. Yeah, bone shaker. So it's 120. It's a worn 120. And so what I'm doing is essentially, once these belts get used to the point to where we really shouldn't be making blades with them anymore. We may use them for profiling a little bit. We use it for handle finishing. But other than that, we discard them. Let's see. Jackie, okay, so I am finishing out knife handles, doing this in kind of an assembly line fashion, so I can get everything done and go from there. Well, Bone Shaker, here's the thing. 300 would not be a good idea. 300 is going to be a high polish, and not that you can't do a high polished handle, but you do want to have some grip. I also just use a 36. Generally, when grinding and finishing, let me take these off. Generally, when you're grinding and finishing, you double. So let's say we're just going to go 40, a 40 grit. My next step would be an 80 and then a 160. If I don't have a 160, then it's going to be a 120. And from there, a 220 or a 240. I usually try to stop at 220, as 240 is just a bit finer. So that's the reason I'm not doing a 300. Now, I will end up with, I need to back up. My final belt will be a blue Scotch-Brite. Now, blue surface conditioner. It's not Scotch-Brite brand. And while I'm doing this, I'm working softer material than steel. So jumping from an 80 to a 36 to a 120 isn't too bad on softer material like the handle. Whereas if you do that, you can do 36 to 120 here, but you're going to go through a lot more belts trying to get all those 36 grit scratches out. Now, these are actually, these blades were cut from basically antique handsaw blades. And then they were reheat treated after being normalized. And that's how I get this finish on here. I just hit them with the surface conditioner, and it gives that rustic homespun finish. But yeah, I mean, if it was something else where I really wanted to enhance the look of that, a higher grit would definitely do that. It's just a matter of what processes you go through to get to that higher grit. I've got a little bit of irregularity on my spine here, so I'm going to go ahead and grind that down. Move that out, just like that. Okay? So now, top slack, be cautious. The blade is not sharp, there's still point. A lot nicer. Now next I have the Damascus planks. Okay, what I'm using it's called a belt dresser. It's a piece of rubber that attaches, that is glued to a piece of wood. And you can get those at hardware stores. So this handles the coating, and this blade has been sharpened, and I should probably not be doing this the way I am, but I am. The linear pattern in the wood itself. I'm going to go ahead and clean up this dyed and stabilized curly maple. Bone shaker, you get a glove caught in there, it's going to take your hand off. Yeah. I'll use gloves if I'm coming in this way, but on top, if that were to catch, that it wouldn't be good. But yeah, I appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's a great time to do so. All right, last one on this belt. Now, if you've got a grinder with a reversible motor, ideally, of course, for top slack, you'd be running this the other direction. Well, this is slowing down. Let's go ahead and clean the belt real quick. So there you have it. And that's how I profile these. How many blades do I do a day? It just depends. Sometimes, like on more complex builds, I'm only working on at a time. But generally, like, I'll give you an example. Today, I'm going to do 10 of these knives. I'm going to get those finished up, and then I'm going to see what time I have to do other things. I've got other projects in the making. Like when I do tomahawks, I mean, I'm looking at least probably a dozen at a time. I've got these reverse falchions that I've been working on. I need to get those handled up. These are heat treated already, 1080 high carbon. And so it just kind of depends. I mean, if I'm slow, you can look at probably only 30 or 40 blades being forged in a weekend. I did try to see how, using the power hammer over here, how many blades I could forge out in 2.5 hours. And that came to like, it was like 80 blades in 2.5 hours. So, it just kind of depends. And that was just forging, the blanks. Now, if you like finished blades, how long does it take, or how many do I do that I start and finish the same day? I make a lot of knives, and in order to make a lot of knives, I've got to forge a lot of blades, I've got to grind a lot of blades, I've got to heat treat a lot of blades, so I do those in batches. Very cool. Thank you for subscribing. All right, let me see if I can find a surface conditioner. Here is a very worn blue surface conditioner. When these are in good shape, I've referenced it to around a 220. And this may or may not stay on the grinder because this one's quite worn. We're going to find out. Seems to be doing okay. So, yeah, like I do. Some people talk about how many. We literally do hundreds up into thousands of blades a year. Okay, so I can show you on these. It's going to put orange dust everywhere, so I'm actually going to start on some of the other woods first. So here's the Bacote handled Damascus. And And you can see how that really makes the grain pop. There we go, I've removed some of the dust. Joe Kennedy, how's it going? So now I'll take this, the purple dyed and stabilized curly maple, and I'm just going to go ahead and give it a pass or two here. Clears up that grain quite a bit, and there will be a reveal on these. Now going to the dyed and stabilized blue curly maple. Cleaned up rather nice. East Indian rosewood. And I know some of you are probably thinking that, hey man, you know, why don't you spend time on higher dollar knives on that? These are really good practice for anybody to be able to, you know, get practice putting handles on, doing finishing, things like that. Especially for those of us who do make higher dollar knives. It's a good way to stay in practice. It's a good way to build that skill set. Hey, you're welcome. Yeah, that actually, yeah, for contrast, it definitely increases contrast. So now purple heartwood. That's why you got to be cautious about top slacking, as it's bringing it towards you if it's not reversed. This motor's not reversible. Well, not by flipping a switch. I'm going to go run through all of these Caduce handles real quick. In a rare instance, I might finish a little more than this on these knives, but no more than what these are going to bring. I'm not going to put a whole lot of work into them. I think I've got one more knife after this. Does the edge of your blade smooth in finger grips, or does the handle have to be shaved with grip points before sanding? You can use the edge like running it over to get into those areas, kind of like you see me doing this. So yeah, or if I'm top slacking, I'll come in here. Yes, that is a technique you use. Do you buy flat blanks or forge them from larger pieces of steel? Okay, so it varies on the material I have available. Some of my pieces are shock removal, some of them are forged exclusively, and then occasionally, you know, we'll get into doing some mid-tech. For those of you not familiar with mid-tech is like cutting out a blank and then forging it from there. So I'll give you guys some examples. There's the last one, by the way. I'll give you some examples. Like I have some high carbon stock over here. Cheyenne's got some 5160. Here's some, I'm going to bet, that's yellow, so that's 1095. I've got some 1080. I usually have some 1085. Sometimes we use 8670. 80 CRV2. I've got some 80 CRV2 in reserve. And then we forge our own Damascus. So occasionally we get a hold of other material and we'll be like, hey, I'll give you an example. I've got some on the floor right here. These are Cheyenne's. These are some Damascus remnants right here. And sometimes we get stuff like this and we go ahead and grind out blades. And those don't cost as much because I didn't have to, it didn't cost me, you know, having to forge the Damascus. So there you go on that. Yeah, the muscle memory does help. It really does. I'm going to come over here. Oh, get my stand caught. Give me just a second. And what I'm going to do, I was doing handle glue up, so give me just a moment to move a couple things. So I have all of these neat handles, all of these neat materials. And what I'm going to do, we're going to do what's called a reveal, and that's where I'm going to use, this is diluted linseed oil. And it's cut with mineral spirits, so it actually seeps in quite nicely, goes on nicely. I'm going to use that to make the grain pop on these. Victor Ortega, how's it going? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go grab a couple paper towels and I'm going to start working on these, getting them all cleaned up and looking nice and presentable. That's something I don't do that often, is look nice and presentable. So this is a gravy boat. I bought some pewter and this was in it. It's not pewter, it's aluminum. It's called Wilton. It's made to look like pewter, but it is not. So what I can do with this, I can literally just apply from there and get an awesome finish. Now, if I want, I can also set that blade in there at that incline where I would normally have the brush and maybe let some of that oil run off, or maybe let a little extra seep into the handle. I'm not too worried about that right now, but what I am going to do, the oil does not act like an etch, but what it does is it enhances the grain and makes it a lot clearer. So it's kind of, I mean, I guess it would be along those lines that with a pattern welded steel, most cases you're going to polish or etch to see the grain. That in this case, that yeah, it does enhance it. It doesn't etch it by any means, but it does enhance it. And now I've got that nice, could be a neck knife or a belt knife or a bag knife, or I suppose even a kitchen knife, with a rustic handle and that rustic Damascus pattern, which I will be cleaning up as well. But there you have that. There's one down, guys. I guess we probably ought to do the good ones first, right? They're all good knives, but let's do up the Damascus. Now this has, I know I should be wearing my safety goggles for this part, but I'm not. Just going to make sure that I got all the extra super glue epoxy that gets squished out. Make sure all that's removed. So guys, there's a blue handle. Do I make my own sheaths? Occasionally I do. I actually have Kydex came in today, which I ordered .06. I usually use .08. They didn't have that in stock, so for some of these knives I'll be getting a .06 handle. And I actually have leather due in tomorrow from Tandy. So depending upon the knife, if I've got sheaths in stock, and a lot of times I do buy sheaths from other suppliers, it's just it's more cost effective for me to do that, because for what I charge for a shop fee, I end up paying to make the sheath essentially. But there is that cool blue dyed and stabilized curly maple. Or is that purple? Hell, that might be purple. This one's blue. I know that one's blue for sure. It looks like a denim blue from here for me, but and I always get up at my up, there by what would be the bolster if it had a bolster. And this turned out pretty cool. I like it. I'm going to wipe it down. And some of these are going to end up going up on auction probably tonight. Probably Cowboy Knife Auctions on Facebook or Fortune Fire Knife Maker Marketplace. It just kind of depends, but check that out. World of difference, people. Makes a huge difference. Now, I will probably go and apply more coats of oil, but doing the reveal, it makes a pretty big difference on your material. Now, some of you may also ask, why aren't these sharpened before? It's a little bit safer. Okay, I mean, there's still that point, but what I'm doing, like these knives, these aren't going to bring me very much money at all. These are going to be $40 to $60. Okay, that's not very much money. So I'll do a batch of these and I'll sell them. I guarantee I will. Everything I make sells. At least it has so far over the past 30, plus years. Okay, that's an East Indian rosewood. Now, I'm going to show you when oiling doesn't make it look better. Hold on just a second. Stag, dude, I have a whole case of Bone Shaker. You stay on here, dude, and I will show you some of the cases after I get done with this where I've got a bunch of my stag handled knives. My shop is here. We're a Forge Memory location, and friend of ours, Robbie Bowman, he was Forged and Fire fan favorite. He's got shops down in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, Sevierville, and so forth. And Cheyenne and I, we were both on Forged and Fire, and sometimes we're on some other TV shows. And we joined up with Forged Memory. We get to teach down at Turtle Island Preserve on occasion, which is kind of neat. And that's what we do, is we make knives. We teach people how to make knives, and we do fun stuff like that. So this, you can see that it looks pretty damn good, but it's not as defined as it was with the lighter colors. Bloodwood. And some of you may be asking what I'm doing with the razor knife. I get a little bit of adhesive spillage here, and if I don't get it cleaned up before it dries, then I have to pop that off. You go from the liquid phase to where it's kind of gummy, rubbery, and then it becomes more, plastic. And what I'm doing is I got in a hurry yesterday doing a video on putting these handles on in bulk and starting to finish them out. And I had people come into the shop because I'm here in my store right now. Bloodwood looks quite nice. So there's a lot of different handle materials that we use. There's a lot of different steels that we use. And if you're doing this, there's a lot of options that you can run with too. God, I wish a blade was better on that, because I like that wood. I really do. Now, sometimes I will go and put a polish over the top of this, which might be, we have used polyurethane before, prefer not to, but a lot of times we'll use something maybe beeswax based, and coat the handles and make everything pop some more. Okay, so here's one, Purple Heartwood, and for some people the purple's a bit overbearing. This one's not too bad, but when you oil it, it really tones it down. So if you're wanting to use Purple Heartwood on like a frontier style knife, and you want to tame it down to make it rustic, but still, hey, that's definitely purple. A little bit of oil on some Purple Heart is a good way to do it. So now keep in mind, as I said, except for the blue and purple dyed and stabilized curly maple, this is natural. It is not stabilized, it's dried, and adding the oil helps to enhance and preserve the material. Now, Padauk, bright rust orange, makes a huge mess when you're sanding it. You guys might have noticed that. Now, when I'm trying to remove this excess epoxy, and on this there is a lot, I'm actually pushing down against the knife blade and then popping up, and what happens is a piece of thing that kind of looks like a toenail comes off of it. You'd be very cautious working with blades of any sort. I cut myself on occasion. I burn myself on occasion. But for the most part, I'm pretty safe about things. Like I said, I appreciate, recommendations on respirators and so forth. But there's a few issues that I have on a physical level with wearing respirators. One of them is visibility. Okay, guys, keep in mind this is going from that rust orange to a red orange. And this will actually tone down quite a bit as that oil soaks in. So another, just a beautiful wood that you can make and use for a knife handle. Or I would actually recommend with the Padauk on stabilizing it, because it does have a tendency to split along the grain, especially if it gets too dry. In the wintertime, I've had this stuff just literally crack out on me, and that's very disappointing when you're about to finish something out and it just goes to pot. So I'm just gonna. You really want to be cautious about scraping the blade with a razor knife or anything else, because you're likely to scratch it. And what I've found on a rustic knife is if I take a little bit of oil and put on here, gun oil works well, something that's got a little bit of viscosity, and then take some 120 paper over that it often blends that away. There's always exception to the rule. And here we go. I've got just a couple more of these, and then I'll show you guys what's in the knife cases. And as far as safety goes, it's something I was doing yesterday, and I was quite cautious about it, was I did have a knife and a vise here. Now, I will often use a vise to clamp part of that handle down and then apply C-clamps. Never leave a blade in a vise. It is extremely dangerous. Whatever you weigh, that's how much, you got the force of that much muscle or that much mass moving forward, and running into something that probably isn't going to move too well. So I make it a point not to leave blades in vices. Heard some horror stories about that. All right, guys, so here is just kind of a cool, just little kitchen knife or garden knife. A lot of people don't know what a garden knife is. That's usually, or at least what Grandma and a lot of people always did, was that was just an old paring knife or something like that you left outside and used for cutting lettuce, and when you need to cut squash off a vine or something like that. But you see how that really starts to subdue it. You get more earth tones. You get that darker orange, which some of it's more red orange. And then if you give it a little bit of time, a day or so, it usually settles down quite a bit to where it's not as bright. That I ever left anything and got hurt? Oh, hell no. No, that's a good way to take all that blade and put that inside of you. And these are small compared to what I normally make. So I did have a blade in a vise that was cooling, so it wasn't sharpened, and got up against it. So I mean, you've always got to be aware of what you're working with and what you're doing. It's kind of like failed blades. How often do you crack a blade or something like that? For some people, it's quite often. I might have a couple of them a year, maybe. And it's usually with recycled materials. And when I go percentage-wise, I'm at 1%, so I'm okay with that. But it's also a good reason why you should check your material. Now, different materials that recycled materials that you might use that might be prone to cracking. Your saws can have cracks in them. Absolutely. You can have other things happen, like files. Files are quite hard, and sometimes they crack. And sometimes you don't find that out until you're grinding down your blade or you're doing your heat treat, and that can be very disheartening, more than anything, because you've already you think you're to that safe point, but you're not. Leaf spring is prone to having microfractures in some cases. I also use a lot of leaf spring. Guys, I'm going to tell you this right now. I know my camera's crooked, but oily rags are not a thing to leave in the shop. I have a forge right here, and this forge is a safe place for me to burn. I don't throw these in the trash can. I sure don't leave them around a heat source. You can get combustion. You don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put these in there, and I'm going to let those go away. That's a safe thing I can do. Once more, if you haven't subscribed yet, you should consider that. Do we fold our own Damascus? Yeah, we do. Bone Shaker, I told you to stick around to the end of this, and I was going to show you some stuff in the cases. But being that you brought up Damascus, I want to go ahead and show you something. This is 16 sections of cable that's forge welded together into one billet. That's actually Cheyenne's. But yeah, we do our own Damascus, and I'm going to show you some of the stuff we've got around here. Is this your garage? No, sir, it's not. Let me show you what this is. I got to put sunglasses on. I'm going to show you what this is here. This is a forge memory location. So I did TV shows and fun stuff like that. And with reasonable investing and so forth, able to come in to my hometown and buy some commercial properties here. But no, this is a forge and memory location. There's Axon, Maine. My daughter's tattoo shop. She's getting open soon. But let's walk on in here. As you come in, you can check out some of Cheyenne's handle material. Some of my dad's beadwork down there. My daughter does a lot of copper, so she's got some war clubs and so forth. And there is some more of that that Damascus that I make the blanks from. Here are some of our hunter type knives. These have poor pewter bolsters and pommels with different types of wood handles. You see some big Bowies make. Some of those have forged to finish guards. Most of them do. There's a big D guard. Actually, here's one of those knives in Purple Heart that I was just working on. Come around here, there's miscellaneous things. There's instructional DVDs. There's a book I helped write. Some of our forging experiences right here. Some more of Cheyenne's awesome dyed and stabilized handle materials. Coming down into, those prices are going up, by the way. Coming down into some of the hunting knives. Bone Shaker, we're going into the... I thought you had a whole blacksmith shop or a whole... No, I used... Aziz, I'm hoping that's how you say your name. I used to, I had a converted garage that I turned into a blacksmith shop, but I changed locations. This is on Main Street now. But here's some elk antler stag-handled Bowies, that I do. Oh, don't forget the tomahawks. That's when I was on Forged in Fire. That's Cheyenne working copper with Eustace. There's Robbie's grudge match down there. But I also make a lot of tomahawks, cool, fun stuff like that. So this is just a small forging area we have at the moment. There's the swords I was showing you that I was working on. And then going into, I need to move that cable, but let me come in from the front. You can see some of the other stag-handled knives we do. One I'm looking at right there, you can see the Hamon on it. That's 1085 differentially hardened. And just getting into some cool stuff. Over here, this is a Bowie I had, I actually carried down at Turtle Island when we teach down there, and I had it photographed for publication. There is a karambit, well, it's not a karambit, it's a multi-tool that looks like a karambit that I got from Russian Blades, I believe it was. That's a Doug Marcada design. Had Doug sign it while I was down at Blade Show. Let me open this up. There's a lot of dust on that glass. This is one of Cheyenne's choppers. This is actually one of her semi-production pieces. It's a semi-custom. It's one she carries. This one she had photographed, submitted for publication. It is a fossil Damascus blade. It's also got some meteorite in it, as well as some excavated Viking knife blades. Right there, excavated Viking knife blades are actually folded up into that. This one is not supposed to be laying down, but this one right here, I got published in Knives 2023. It is, it won Most Unusual Knife, GAKC Show 2022. That is, let me see if I can get it to focus in. That is Meteorite Damascus, 15 and 20 and 1095 powder. 100-plus-year-old wrought iron fittings and human femur bone for the handle. And then, like, that little copper leaf-shaped blade right there is one that we made down at Turtle Island for one of the experiences, which, if you guys are interested in, you can actually sign up for those classes, those workshops, September 6th and 7th in Boone, North Carolina at the Turtle Island Preserve. I believe you're correct on the karambit thing. I make some of them. I don't use them as much. Bone shaker, yeah. I definitely do custom work, man. Yep. You can find me on Instagram at Dustin_Rhodes, RHODES _Forge_works. So Dustin Rhodes Forge works, in between each word an underscore. I'm going to turn this back around. Show you some of the other stuff that we do. And since karambits were brought up, a friend of mine managed to supply me with some 50 caliber machine gun barrel, and I made made a cool karambit that way. So guys, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We'll catch you in a few, and more videos to come. See you later.